Okay, so the question is, how do you work through periods of low motivation? And this is going to depend a lot on what is causing the motivation to wane. Whether you're physically tired from overreaching, overtraining, poor recovery, which is what overtraining is, whether it's related to the physical component of training, or is your motivation down because of increased outside stress from family, work, other life stuff. Are you just racing too much and feeling stressed about that? So I'm going to answer this a few different ways because I think there's a number of different contexts here that are possible. And I'm also not sure if you're asking me how I personally manage this or how I manage it for people that I coach. And I kind of assume that's what you're asking. But just briefly, for me personally, right now I no longer have race goals. I train hard because I love it. When I get to a point of not loving it, I just pull the plug, regroup, and the motivation comes back. Yes, I did just do a race, but my point is that, I'm just throwing races on there. I don't have like a race calendar that I have to worry about pulling back, with respect to an upcoming goal. And I also have the flexibility to do that because I have 20 years of cycling training and 30 years of endurance training. And so, at any rate, that's neither here nor there. But my point is that is my specific like protocol now is if I'm not feeling motivated to train, I stop, regroup, and then the motivation comes back. Now, most of the people that I coach are, we're going to create a race calendar at the beginning of the year, and they're, pretty committed to that. They have specific goals, specific timelines, and we're working within that timeline. So we need to monitor their motivation much more closely because they're likely not in a position to be able to just, pull the plug and regroup because, there's an upcoming goal kind of dangling in front of them. So that makes it a little bit different. Now, I'll add that there is another specific context here, which is that the people who hire me tend to be incredibly motivated. I'm not, we're talking about a situation where highly motivated athletes are experiencing a dip in motivation. People who hire me they're looking for structure, guidance, support, feedback, analytics. They're not, when people are considering hiring me and they tell me that they're hiring a coach for accountability, I usually tell them that it's not going to be a good fit because this really isn't my strong suit. I'm not a cheerleader. I'm not a personal trainer. That's not my coaching strength, ultimately. I do recognize that there's always going to be ebbs and flows with everyone with their motivation, but I do want to make it clear that this isn't something that I typically see long term with people that I'm coaching. They are very intrinsically motivated, and we're talking about specific dips, within, for a very highly motivated person. So someone who is typically very highly motivated is struggling with their motivation. We dig in and try to figure out why. So if we determine that they're physically tired, probably out of their training data, out of their kind of subjective feedback about how they're feeling, the requisite becomes rest. It's time to either get off the bike and take a break, or pivot to recovery rides only. And I'll add that most people don't know how to do a proper recovery ride and they're going to go too hard. We're talking about nasal breathing intensity, walking pace on your bike. That means a TSS of probably 30 or less, maybe 40 if you're going by HR TSS. But if your training load is higher than that for a recovery ride, you're not doing a recovery ride. So just a little background. So if it's someone that I trust is going to do true recovery rides, we might pivot to that. Otherwise, I would, tell them to get off the bike. And so we would start there, see how long it takes for their legs to come back. And then usually we wait just a little bit longer to be really sure that they've dropped the fatigue and they're ready to kind of get after it again. If we know that this person is probably going to feel flat, just given, our previous experience with them, then we probably start off with a little bit of intensity to kind of turn things back on. If someone is physically fresh, but mentally or emotionally drained. And that is what is causing their motivation to drop. A lot of times at that point, all we need to do is remove the structure from the plan and they can just, have fun with open rides, but without any kind of planned structure or intensity. And sometimes, a week, 2 weeks of just open riding will kind of turn the motivation back on. So, in short, we pull back, whether it's structure or riding in general, we pull back when a highly motivated person is struggling with their motivation. We don't try to push through it. That really does not work. We usually end up with bigger problems down the road if you try to push through when your motivation is suffering, when a highly motivated person is struggling to feel motivated. Now, all of that being said, I'm curious why you're asking because you specifically, your context is a little bit different. I'm not sure if any of this applies for you. I hope there's still some useful info for you. And maybe you have another reason for asking, but at any rate, I'm curious and I appreciate the question, and I hope there was some helpful info in there.